This is Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Ron Rohde, Kentucky Afield's first host back in 1953. Now, I'm proud to present Charlie Baglin.
You're 10 years old. You notice the smell of fresh-baked cookies. You follow your nose to the kitchen, and jackpot, you sneak one. Then, Mama comes in, shoos you away. A little while later, the coast is clear. So you go back, and you grab a couple more. Ever done that? Then what makes you any different than a bear? We will find out next on Kentucky Afield Radio.
Did you grab the mayonnaise?
We've got to meet Bob and Cindy at the little store to buy some lunch stuff. Where's John?
He said he left something in his room. He's coming. Did you grab the mayonnaise?
What do you think? Ham, chips? I put that mustard we like in the cooler.
Did you grab the mayonnaise? Oh, here he comes.
Good. He grabbed his life jacket. I should have remembered that.
Did you grab the mayonnaise?
Cupcakes. I want those yellow cupcakes.
Tell your phone.
Boaters are busy, on and off the water. That's why Kentucky conservation officers remind you, your life jacket's got your back.
I'm on to him, Kate. If he says 10, he's lying.
You poor thing.
It's mostly about fishing. He caught 10 fish in 10 minutes, or it weighed 10 pounds, like right.
Well, what about when he says you're a perfect 10?
Did I say it's mostly about fishing?
Your Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife reminds you, fishing's not about math. It's about fun.
And fudging a little if you need to.
Kentucky Fishing. Be honest.
It'll make a liar out of you.
Welcome to Kentucky Afield. My name is Charlie Baglin. Today's show is about black bears. My guest is John Hast, black bear specialist with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. He is brand new to the position, and I have several questions I want to ask John, such as, where are bears? Where are they going? How many bears are there in Kentucky? Why don't we know that number? Hunting seasons on black bears. Is their range expanding? Will seasons expand as well? Could they wind up living beyond the eastern Kentucky mountains? Could we ever envision a set bear zone in Kentucky similar to what we have for elk? I have Dr. Hast for 1 hour, and we'll make the most of it, and we'll get to know him a little bit along the way. John, welcome to the show. This is a special occasion because this is the first time I've ever seen you when you were not wearing a cap.
I know.
You took it off. What's the occasion? What's
the little top knot there?
Oh, okay, you're wearing headphones, and that little bead on the top of the cap will press into your skull.
Yes.
Well, even if it weren't that, if you were just trying to be polite, I accept it as that. I'm trying to picture what a bear man would look like, a bear guy. Of course, I have this old Grizzly Adams type thing, and I guess you could pass for, if I saw you, say, yeah, I could see he'd be a bear biologist.
Potentially, yeah. Not wearing a nice, office shirt like this. It was years of ratty Carhartts and worn-out T-shirts.
Is it an adjustment for you from coming from the field to the Fish and Wildlife headquarters?
I think it is. I mean, I generally like to look nice when it's appropriate, but I've spent the last 10 years of my life working out of a truck in the field, so...
Bears in Kentucky. I have heard a couple of different stories. Well, they were here and then they were hunted out. With the westward expansion and the loss of habitat, the bears that were here were basically hunted out, or they died out, or they had nowhere to live. And so we lost them in the 1800s or so. Mm-hmm. Then you hear the story, well, they're coming back. They're coming back from West Virginia, and they're coming from Virginia and Tennessee. Well, are they still coming back, or are they here?
Oh, they're definitely here now.
So have we maybe leveled off, or do you think they will continue to grow higher in number?
They will absolutely continue to grow in higher number because we've not even come close to putting bears in all the good habitat that Kentucky's got. One place that I like to point out to people is the Daniel Boone National Forest. Parts of it have bears, so there's plenty of room for expansion and increase in bears in most of the eastern and kind of south-central portions of Kentucky.
Once upon a time, I liked to backpack, and I would go often where a lot of people go in this state, Red River Gorge. And I wasn't doing it like the textbook said, keep food out of your tent. Tie it up so where a bear couldn't get it. Because there was no fear of a bear at the time. Maybe a big raccoon was as close as I was going to come to encountering a bear.
Right.
If I were to do that today, could I get in trouble?
You could, yeah. The Daniel Boone National Forest has some fairly strict but appropriate food storage laws.
What are the laws? These aren't just suggestions then.
Right, not suggestions. So most of the camping that's done in the Red River Gorge is, your typical car camping where you're at a campsite, and food has to be put in a bear-resistant box or stored inside a vehicle, or if you've got a camper trailer or something like that, it's got to be in an appropriate enclosure that the bear can't get to it. So essentially, when I head out that way, I keep everything in the back seat of my truck. Keep food in the cooler. I'll take another packer box or something to keep food in, just to keep it organized so I know that all of it makes it back inside the vehicle.
The bears that live in eastern Kentucky, in the Daniel Boone National Forest, is that pretty much everything that is east of Interstate 75?
It is, although 75 does bisect parts of the Daniel Boone National Forest around Rockcastle and Laurel counties, and so a big portion of our bear population is in McCreary and Wayne counties, and we always call it the Big South Fork population because of the Big South Fork National River and Recreation area down there. And of course that abuts right up to Daniel Boone, and it is about 85% of McCreary County is forested, so it is ideal bear habitat.
And there are bears there. So that interstate is no barrier. They can cross right over that.
They haven't necessarily crossed, but they do. We've got documentation of them crossing it, but the nature of Kentucky's bears, they didn't expand from one side of the interstate to the other. We've more or less got two what we're calling our core populations, one of which is in Harlan and Letcher County around Pine Mountain, Black Mountain, Cumberland Gap area. Our other population is in the Big South Fork. And that population was actually restocked into Tennessee in the mid-90s and has since expanded northward into Kentucky in that Big South Fork recreation area.
So there are two populations, and both of those are continuing to expand out.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
A home range for a bear.
Well, it depends on what type of bear. So a mother with cubs is about 2.5 square kilometers, so very, very small. That's right around 1.25 miles square. So this time of year, their cubs are in the 12 to 15 pound range probably, and they're not moving great distances like an adult bear could. Females that have yearlings, that home range will be slightly bigger. A female with 1-year-old cubs, yearlings as we call them. And then, of course, a large male bear, depending on his age and sort of status in the breeding system, he could have hundreds of square miles of home range.
So home ranges have to overlap.
They do. Yeah, very much so. Of course, the males and females do because they come together during breeding time. From our work with GPS collars at the University of Kentucky, we have maps where you can see exactly the female's home range and how they're stacked in and slightly overlap. And through some of our genetic work, we can see that the daughter of a female bear with an established home range on Pine Mountain sort of takes up part of her mother's home range, but also expands into new territory. And we've got a series of colored dots on a map from 20 to 25 different females that just fill up Pine Mountain just like a puzzle. And that was some of the most fascinating part of the bear research that I've done.
Are they protective of these home territories?
They are, but not in the sense of something like a pack of wolves would be, or other members of the canine, the dog family, foxes and whatnot. Not so much territorial. The large males during breeding season will defend the females' area, kind of their area that they intend to breed in, from other younger males. So that's what we see a lot of this time of year, is younger males sort of getting bounced out of the core ranges and showing up in places around central Kentucky because they're basically running from the larger males that are trying to kick them out.
If you talk to a deer biologist in the state and you said how many deer are there in the state, they could give you a number.
Mm-hmm.
may be close, may not be exact. Do we have any way of knowing how many bears there are in this state?
Yeah, we do. We're actually in the process of wrapping up 4 years' worth of research with the University of Kentucky.
There was a time when it would say, well, we don't know. Well, we hate to say. You remember those days. Maybe you were a part of that, but now you actually have more of a handle on it.
Yes, absolutely. So as good of bear research as we've ever had in this state, we've got right now to inform management decisions into the future.
John Hast, Kentucky's go-to guy for black bears. How many bears call Kentucky home? We'll narrow that number down when we come back. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. We're back on Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Charlie Baglin. There is no 10-year census for bears to determine the population. No 10-year census for rabbits or deer. But for an animal, a wild animal as large as a bear, we wonder what their population size really is. John Hast, Kentucky bear biologist, is on the show today. And what's the story?
A friend of mine that I worked with at the University of Kentucky just finished his PhD on that subject, and that was actually counting black bears. And through more or less modern miracles of science dealing with DNA information, we're able to acquire DNA samples from black bears by using barbed wire around a series of trees with a bait station in the middle. And from that barbed wire, we'll get a hair sample. You know, the bears either got to go under the strand or over the strand. And we send that hair sample to a lab, and they can tell us how many times an individual bear has visited that site. Through that and some fairly complex statistics, we get a great number in terms of abundance in a set area. And it's really, you know, that's more or less the gold standard for counting bears. And thank goodness that a bear can be baited across a piece of barbed wire with a honey bun, or we would have really no way of counting them.
So what's the number?
Oh, we're still working on that.
Oh, there you go again. There you go again. Oh, well, I hate to say. Well, I don't know yet. Well, we kind of know. We have an estimate, but is it more than one, less than a million? Can we narrow it down to that?
More than one, less than a million.
More than one, less than a million.
Mm-hmm.
How about 500 bears?
You're getting warm, yeah.
Okay. How many do you think would be here?
I'll be honest with you, given my academic background, I will tell you that I speak definitely within the data. And we've got a paper off to the publisher right now with the magic number there. And we'll be proud to display that number once we get things taken care of and get the paper out where it needs to go.
So meanwhile, no hints.
Meanwhile, no hints.
We don't know if this baby's a boy or girl, and you know, but you're not going to tell us.
Between 1 and a million.
Between 1 and a million. That's as close as I've gotten from the Division of Wildlife on exactly how many bears there are. You heard it here first. Still, the people like to come into contact, or maybe they don't like to come into contact. Eastern Kentucky folks, more contact with black bears than anybody, say, on the western side of Interstate 75. Mm-hmm. The Bluegrass region, you get out west, people are listening to this and laughing. Yeah. Has there ever been a bear at Land Between the Lakes, do you think?
You know, we've had some scattered reports. In recent history, and I say the last 10 years, we've had a number of the young males that I talked about being kicked out of the breeding range that will travel into the Bluegrass region. We had one that actually ended up about 2 to 3 miles from my family's farm in Ohio County, which was a strange situation. But again, it's those young males that are getting bounced out of the breeding range, and they're essentially just walking, looking for a good place to settle down, looking for a female themselves, looking for food.
Is there habitat in Ohio County to support black bears?
Oh, yeah.
Do they really need what they find in eastern Kentucky's mountains?
Well, that is, of course, eastern Kentucky and closed canopy, large areas of dense forests like you would think of in the Daniel Boone is the perfect habitat. But if you look at other southeastern states like Virginia, North and South Carolina, 10, 15 years ago, their bear populations were basically situated in kind of the mountain ends of those states to the west and in the coastal swampy areas along the Atlantic Ocean. But what they've seen in the last 15 years is expansion sort of from both ends of the state into habitat that is really no different than the bluegrass region in Kentucky. It's no different than Ohio County, Grayson County, those areas where you've got timber interspersed with row crop and cattle farming. So definitely, northern Kentucky, those areas, Henry County, absolutely we'll find bears there one day.
Is that problematic? Does the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife get any flack for we don't want bears along the Green River? What's your response?
Yeah, that is one of the biggest questions facing my program right now is with the new research that I spoke about, we've got a foundation to manage these bears on. And questions like, where do we want bears in the state? They are expanding and will continue to expand. And we can use tools such as lengths of hunting seasons, changing the bear quota, to manage how many bears are in specific areas in the state. That's, of course, our number one management tool. But the big question is where is it appropriate? A main issue with bears is what we call the social carrying capacity. It's how many bears and in what part of the state will people tolerate bears. The mountains in the east, there's not a lot of row crop agriculture, so there's not a lot of bears that are tearing up cornfields, but as they move westward, they're going to encounter more nice cornfields. They're going to encounter more cattle farm, sheep operations, that kind of stuff. And that's all a definite major concern and something that's on our radar. Basically, we've got an opportunity to kind of write how we manage these bears into the future.
Is that what a bear wants to eat? Do they want to eat corn or do they prefer blackberries?
I liken a bear to you or I. And, after a long day of work, I get to the house, I can either go and pick something out of the garden and whip it up on the stove, or at my house, I've got a Subway right across, a block from the house. And just exactly what happened last night, it was cook or run over to Subway, I ran over to Subway.
Whatever's convenient for the bear.
Whatever's convenient. And
Mother Nature doesn't say, go for the blackberries.
Right.
Mother Nature doesn't draw that animal back to the mountains to eat what grows naturally, right? Are you saying that? It would just as soon eat out of a picnic basket?
Right. So, they're trying to get food in the most efficient manner possible. And if they're walking down the trail and there's a campsite that's left a bucket of fried chicken on the picnic table, they're going to grab it.
Sure.
If there's a trash can that's been left out waiting on trash day, they're going to see what's in there because I'm sure, it smells good. But in the same manner, if we have a big acorn crop this fall, that's where they're going to be because they're carpeted all over the forest floor and they're easy to get.
So it's actually more convenient to go into the woods. I've heard bear biologists say when there is an abundance of mass cropping, a lot of hickory nuts, for example, growing in the forest, that's when you'll see fewer and fewer bear-human encounters. Mm-hmm. Showing up in downtown Richmond or Winchester, for example.
Right. And, of course, we're coming off of a year, I'm sure our deer hunters and others know that we had almost a mass crop failure last fall. So I think the bears went into the den hungry. We had an elevated level of nuisance reports through last fall. And so far this year, our number of reports have been fairly high.
People come in contact with bears. Mm-hmm. I don't want to sit here in Frankfort, Kentucky, with a government biologist presuming that we know more than people living in bear country.
Yeah.
That's just wrong. Now, you live there. I've visited there. Mm-hmm. I've camped there. I'm from the bluegrass area. But you lived there for a while, and you have black bear biologist Jason Plaxico, for one, mm-hmm. who has always lived there for as long as I've known him, 25 years. How do people in eastern Kentucky live knowing that they're in bear country? Are they just used to it, or is it really a concern?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of people are used to it. A lot of our cities and counties in the eastern Kentucky region have really embraced the black bear. Cumberland, Kentucky is the self-proclaimed bear capital of Kentucky, and they've got a annual bear festival in the spring, so it's a sense of pride. And I always tell people that bears are back because the habitat is back. The forests are there, the bears are back, everything is as better than it was through the 1900s when we were farming corn on the side of Pine Mountain. So life in bear country, it just takes a little more don't want to say caution, but it's just a slight lifestyle adjustment to keep the number of human food sources. So whether that's garbage that you've got set out on the curb for the trash truck, whether that's, I'm guilty of keeping my dog food on the back porch in a trash can, but I live in downtown Lexington right now, so I'm not worried about a bear getting it. So if you're in Harlan Electric County or Pike County or any of the counties in southeast Kentucky, just being mindful of the attractants for the bears can virtually eliminate all problems you'll ever have with bears. I would venture to say that 90% of all of our calls deal with garbage, pet food, bird feeders, or a used charcoal grill or gas grill. Like, you get used to keeping that on the back porch, but after a big Memorial Day cooking hamburgers or something, that grill smells great to a bear.
So, I bet it does.
It's something to think about.
You were quoted in a news story earlier this spring in a press release from the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, and here's what you said. Garbage, food scraps, pet food, bird feeders can all draw bears. Citizens, get this, can resolve 99% of the issues they're having with bears, if any, by simply removing these food sources or the smells.
Yes.
The food doesn't have to be there, but the smell does.
Right.
99%. Makes you wonder about that other 1%. Who gives there? John Hast is here, and I can tell he has a response to that question, but hold up. Music is playing. We have a fishing report standing by, then we will get back to it. My name is Charlie Baglin, and you are listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. Baglin back on Kentucky Afield Radio, and if you would like to hear this show again, or email the link to someone that you know lives in bear country or has an interest in bears, it's pretty easily done. Go to our Facebook page and just type in Kentucky Afield Radio. Up we will pop. You can like us there and find our weekly links. You can also find us on iTunes. We are a podcast. And on YouTube, just type in Kentucky Afield Radio. More on Kentucky's black bears in just a sec. First up, our fishing report.
Hi, this is John Williams with a fish report for southeast Kentucky. At Lake Cumberland, the striped bass fishing has been good of late. Fish are on the move. Most can be caught on mud flats on the main lake, also on the mouths of the major coves there. Say about 40 feet deep, so most of them running a little deep. Seen good fish, even some up in the 15, 20-pound range. Those can mainly be caught on alewives, so if you can catch live bait, that's the way to go. Otherwise, you can troll doll flies or curly-tail grubs. Elsewhere in the lake, walleye's been slow. You might pick up a few at the bottom bouncer and the night crawler in 25 to 35 feet deep out on the main lake. And the tailwater's been good of late there below Wolf Creek Dam, especially if you're a fly fisherman, catching a variety of sizes of trout. Also, with spinning gear, you can catch them on rebel crawdads or small spinners, inline spinners like rooster tails. As always, good luck and good fishing.
This is Jeff Crosby with the Central District Fishing Report. Bass fishing in the area continues to be pretty good. Consider Taylorsville, Harrington, Gist Creek. Crankbait swim jigs are productive when fished on main lake secondary points or on outside bends in standing timber. Quality crappie can still be caught at Taylorsville and Harrington. Crappie are being caught on live minnows and crappie jigs. Fish your lures in 6 to 10 foot of water, concentrating on your efforts in standing timber or the end of large fallen trees. And finally, ponds and lakes that are part of our Fishing in Neighborhoods program will be stocked with channel catfish in early August. Check out the department's website at fw.ky.gov for a complete list of fins, lakes, and your area, as well as the stocking times. Grab a pole and enjoy some great summertime fishing.
This is Kevin Fry with your Eastern Area Fisheries Report. Stream fishing continues with good reports during this hot weather. Smallmouth bass, rock bass, catfish, and a few walleye in catches. Russell Fork and Leviza Fork downstream of Fish Trap Lake yielding some walleye. Most stream anglers using night crawlers, crayfish, and plastic artificials. Lake fishing still having best largemouth bass catches at dusk and dawn. Topwater and spinner baits with good results at these times. Dusk and dawn time periods getting a few walleye at Carr Creek and Paintsville Lakes, with spinners tipped with live bait in shallow shoreline areas. Catfishing reports doing well in main lake areas with jugs and floaters. Baits set at 2 to 3 foot depth. Channel and blue catfish hitting well at Dewey and Fish Trap Lakes. Cut fish being used as bait for these catfish.
In the news, whales have been spotted in Kentucky waters. We have an expert standing by on the water's edge.
There goes the bobber. Set the hook.
Daddy, it's a whale.
Way to go, buddy.
Childlike wonder for the outdoors. It still exists. Where to go, what to take, and how to get started are waiting at the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife website, fw.ky.gov. Take a kid fishing. Don't let the opportunity get away.
How was the wedding?
I cried like a baby.
Good thing you wore your life jacket.
They say you can drown in a teaspoon of water. Makes you think twice about that next cup of coffee.
Honey, I'll be outside washing the car.
Life jacket.
Before you break a sweat, before your next sad movie, wear your life jacket.
Put on your life jacket and help with the dishes.
Life jackets. You know when they're a stupid idea. You should know when they're not. Kentucky conservation officers remind you your life jacket's got your back. We are back into our second half hour on Kentucky Afield Radio. Thanks for tuning in. This is Charlie Bagman. This hour we are talking about bears. Bears that live in Kentucky and how we can best coexist with them. John Hast, our black bear biologist, is in the studio with me. This is John's very first appearance on the show. As we went to break, we were talking about that 99% of run-ins we have with bears are linked to food sources, garbage and pet food and outdoor grills. But what about that other 1%?
That other 1% of bears most likely have already been hand-fed or very habituated to getting a human food source, to the point that they now associate humans with food. It's not that they're associating now a bird feeder in a dark backyard at 2:30 in the morning. That 1% has gotten to the point where they expect a handout, or they are completely comfortable being in a neighborhood around people during the daytime. And those are bears that normally have either been fed or have just been in a situation where they're causing a nuisance, getting a human food source for long enough that it's become the norm. We're not able to break that habit.
My wife and I have been to Gatlinburg a few times, and the Smoky Mountains is just known for black bears. Mm-hmm. And I think people learn a bad habit when they go there, because you'll be driving through the national park and suddenly all the traffic is stopped and there's a bear sighting. And not only do people get out of their cars and walk up, try to see the bear, take pictures of the bear, they may be picking snack food up out of their car and tossing it over there to them. Mm-hmm. Right. Is there a place in Kentucky where those bad habits occur to that extent?
At times, and we have made great strides to prevent that. The gift shop in the Smoky sells a bumper sticker that says a fed bear is a dead bear. They've got one that says garbage kills bears. So it's this well-known fact that a bear getting fed by people, it's not good. It's not good for that bear. And it's not because of the calories of the candy bar. It's because one day they're going to approach somebody thinking they're going to get a handout, and then Park Service or a state biologist is going to have to catch that bear and euthanize that bear due to aggressive behavior. The best place in Kentucky to see a black bear is actually right here in our Salado Center. Get up close and personal with a great bear, and don't take a chance on us having to kill a bear because it's been hand-fed, so that people can view it.
So then the bears are going to be out moving around, it sounds like, from when they come out of the dens late winter. Mm-hmm. Is there a period of time other than the dead of winter when bears aren't roaming about?
Now, they'll be roaming about pretty much April to November, and then it slacks off. Our nuisance calls peak into April, May. They'll slack off when berries come out. Everybody picks their blackberries around 4th of July. Our nuisance calls will slack off a little bit then, because bears will be concentrating on berries as a food source. And then our nuisance situations in the fall really depend on the acorn crop. If we have a good acorn crop this year, calls and complaints coming into us will be down because bears are happily eating acorns up on the side of the mountain.
Put this on Facebook that you and I were going to be talking today. Said if you have any questions or comments about bears, want me to ask John, let me know. And I've got a few here. Let's try them on for size.
All right.
Myra Minton wants to know how far west have bears expanded their territories?
So right now, we've that McCreary County bear population in the Big South Fork that I talked about, that's going to be our furthest west core. And we've got sporadic report Cumberland County, Clinton County, got some recent reports in Casey County, but definitely that core is situated mainly in McCreary and Wayne County. Across south central Kentucky, there's great bear habitat, Glasgow, Bowling Green. I expect an expansion there. I expect us to see more of the young males making forays out from there. But as far as a county goes, where you will find when we kind of draw the map, if you've got a female with cubs seen in that county, you can just about bet that those cubs were born in that county, and that's what we're going to say now has a resident bear population. So those counties don't really go much past Wayne County and kind of stay within the arc of the Daniel Boone National Forest. So a few counties on the west side of I-75, but mostly situated to the east and south of I-64, where you have a chance of truly saying there's a resident bear population.
You think a bear would eat a barbecue sandwich?
Oh, without a doubt.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
More questions from Facebook. Mindy Rose. What do I do if I see a bear while hiking and it also sees me? So you're standing there. What do I do now? Yeah, the ideal situation is that bear sees you. You never want to surprise a bear. So once that bear's seen you, it's going to turn tail and go. If it does not, that's just simply because it hadn't quite figured out what you are yet. If you've got a jacket on, the best thing you can do is look big and be loud. Bang sticks together, and that bear will move on. Kim Parnes, fan of the show up in Cincinnati area. Mm-hmm. I saw on TV this morning that some people use cowbells. I've heard of these, also call them bear bells. Yeah. When they're hiking. Does that really work? The bear bell, cowbell speaks to the exact same thing, the exact same way I was answering that earlier question with making sure the bear knows you're there. I know a lot of people in grizzly country that will sing or just generally talk to themselves walking down the trail, and that is announcing your presence. You're not going to sneak up on a bear and alarm it. Another Facebook question. Photographer wants to know, Roger Strunk says, what do you recommend if you want to photograph bears? Is this something you should try? Yeah, it's bound to be a tough one. And it's one of those where ideally you would find a natural food source that they're using, and I would liken it to what you would have to do to photograph a mature whitetail buck. You would have to hunt to get that photograph. There's very few places in the state that we've got bears like you might get in the Smokies. And that's something that we try to eliminate. They're there because they're getting a reward, and in the end, they're being fed. But definitely some natural areas on Pine Mountain, Black Mountain, Cumberland Gap National Park, you've got a chance as you're walking through the woods of being able to see and observe a bear and maybe get some photographs. So where are the highest densities in eastern Kentucky? It'll be Harlan, Letcher, Bell County down to about Cumberland Gap, and then it'll be that core in the Big South Fork in McCreary County. So as far as Morehead State University, you're not going to be going to class there and run into a bear? Potentially. We get bear calls out of Morehead nearly every year, and that should be increasing. If you think about what's around Morehead, it's beautiful, closed canopy, hardwood forest. It's prime bear habitat. You've done the study. Do they exist naturally there? Is that home range of bears? We don't know. We don't have a lot of good, substantial reports of females with cubs out of those counties. Cave Run Lake, Grayson Lake? Cave Run Lake area. Years ago, actually in the early 90s, we had some reports of females with cubs, but we've just lacked those good substantial reports for us to be able to call that having a resident bear population. I know people, maybe you do too, one particular person comes to mind who is scared of everything wildlife. If it were a spider, if it were a snake, bat, bears, well, that's good enough reason for me to stay the heck away from there. Mm-hmm. Now, I can't imagine if everybody in eastern Kentucky felt that way, there would be nobody living in eastern Kentucky. Right. Apparently, they know how to live with bears, and they don't freak out every time they hear a story about a bear. Right, right. And my point with that is people grow up in bear territory simply knowing how to do it, and maybe they will never even ever see a bear. Is that still the case?
It is, and I know plenty of people in eastern Kentucky that have bears right around their house, but they've never gotten lucky enough to see one. And then I know other people that can't seem to go through the day without running into one on one capacity or the other. We have seen in areas, of course, I've been in the bear business now since about 2006, 2007, and I've definitely seen a change in people's acceptance of bears in those core areas, McCreary County, Harlan, and Letcher County. And again, they've embraced the bear, had the bear festivals. They're more aware of how their garbage is being handled. You know, not throwing food scraps back. We used to have a compost pile at my house that would be prime bear fodder, you know. They're making these lifestyle adjustments that helps bears and humans live together better. And, of course, one of my challenges is, as bear range expands, there will always be new people that each summer that will be the first time they've encountered a bear in their area. So really getting their message out and trying to get in front of our expanding bear population, I think will go a very long way and is one of the priorities of my program right now.
I had a biologist many years ago, and I was early into this gig with the Kentucky Afield TV and radio shows, that the more you know about something, the more inclined you are to care. If that's about squirrels or trees or fish, water quality, same can be applied to bears. And I assume that eastern Kentucky citizens have grown up with bears. They've heard this since day one. It hasn't been preached to them. It's just that they know. It's just a matter of, this is how I live my life in bear country. Mm-hmm. It's the same if you were going to live in Florida and have to deal with alligators.
Right.
You learn these things, and it's second nature from there forward. Has a bear ever killed anybody in the state? Do you know of?
No, not in Kentucky. Not in recent modern, I'm sure, Daniel Boone's day.
But a bear's not going to lie in wait, waiting for you to come down the trail and jump out at you.
No.
They don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading where if they're going to eat living things such as animal matter, would be insects.
Yeah, we were actually research trapping on Pine Mountain during the big cicada hatch, and I'm thinking it was 2008, 2009, when they were just everywhere. Every pile of bear scat that we found had translucent cicada wings in it, so they had a cicada buffet for about a month. We have just a few minutes remaining with our bear expert, John Hast. He's with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, and when we come back, we will look at bear seasons, quota hunts for anyone wanting to be hands-on with bear management. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. We're back with our final few minutes with John Hast, the Bear Program Coordinator with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. My name is Charlie Baglin. When Fish and Wildlife establishes a hunting season on any animal, deer, rabbit, sandhill crane, whatever it might be, this isn't done haphazardly. Much research goes into it, a lot of measurement. Perhaps the most important of all, how many of these animals do we have to start with? And do you want to hold that number steady? Do you want to grow it? Or do you want to reduce it? For the population of bears, researchers have to have at least a working number to set the bear hunting seasons. When will we have something more concrete? Is that still years away or what? No. It'll be much sooner than that. So we're in the process of getting research together and actually getting that formally published in an academic journal. So there's multiple copyrights and this and that. And once that's out, that's usually a couple-month process. Once that's out, that'll be the first thing we'll do, and that will be the foundation of our bear management plan into the future. We will watch for that later this year. Good deal. The bear season. You can hunt bears in Kentucky now. Yep. Was there 45 taken last year? 46? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you must have a good grip on the number out there so that you know the bears that you harvest don't affect the overall population. We do, yeah, and that's one of our number one tenets of management is in those core areas is to manage them sustainably for the future. From our first bear season to our current bear season, we've had a marked expansion in both range and numbers and density of black bears in the counties that we do hunt. So we're adjusting all the time our harvest quota to the actual population numbers we've got. Why is it bears aren't considered
what the state would call an inherently dangerous animal right out there with wolves or mountain lions.
When it comes to possessing one as a pet or something like that, they're on that inherently dangerous list. Definitely it goes back to that healthy dose of respect. I mean, a 400-pound male black bear can rip a car door off if it really wanted to, and we're just lucky that they don't. As humans, we have coexisted with dangerous animals back for millennia. Daniel Boone coming over the Cumberland Gap, of course, had black bears in the woods and a host of other things that
I would never want to encounter a bison.
Oh, yeah.
Would you?
Well, if you take the United States together, moose kill more people than just about anything else put together, wildlife-related.
I had no idea.
Yeah. The mothers are protective of their calves and tend to stop people when they get too close. So
you talked about this management plan going into the future. Any particular hurdles we're going to have trouble crossing?
We've got a good opportunity, so it's one of those things that as bears expand, we're constantly needing to make adjustments and rewrite the book as we go. Having this data that we've recently got from the University of Kentucky is going to lay the foundation that allows us both adaptability, but also the foresight to look at things in a 10 to 20-year time span instead of just simply reacting to changes within the course of a year or one single issue that might pop up. We're going to have this long-term perspective, which is critical to managing populations of large animals.
So the populations of bears, how quickly does a population grow?
Well, ours are expanding right now at about 10% per year. Got 100 bears, you're going to have 110 next year. So the population of rabbits or something like that, or even white-tailed deer, it's slower than that. But then again, in Kentucky, we harvest 120,000, 40,000 whitetails a year, and our quota is 35 bears, ended up harvesting 46 this year. So, depending on the species and their growth potential, that's what depends the level of harvest and the management that we need to use on that species.
We started talking at the very beginning of the show. We don't have enough bears to fill all the spaces actually that bears could live. Mm-hmm. The carrying capacity of the state. What percent are we? Are we at 10% of the carrying capacity of the state or a little more?
Years and years ago, we thought that bears absolutely had to have closed canopy forests to exist. We've recently found out that's not the case. They prefer that habitat, but it's, they can live in a place that I think a Henry County or an Owen County woods with some cattle farms, but they're just fine in that. So I would say that, we're probably have not even reached the 10% part of the state that's at carrying capacity. And even our core areas may not be at carrying capacity because that's unique to each area and each state, and we just don't know that number yet.
In eastern Kentucky, we have an elk zone, 16-county area. Do you ever foresee a bear zone like that if you see a bear coming outside of those counties, it's free range to harvest? Has talk at all even come up about that?
The main thing that I've been thinking about when I get the chance for about the last month is how do we manage our bears into the future. That's what a lot of this data is going to serve as a foundation of. But a lot of that has to do with the hunting strategy we might use. My big goal right now is to help get our bear hunters more hunting time. And it's one of those things that with our quota system, most of our seasons this past year only lasted a Saturday. So if you're a hunter traveling in, you might only get a morning to hunt or a morning and an afternoon. So that's something we're working towards. With that in mind, potentially, as you get out of these core areas, we might have a different system, a different time of the year that season would be on versus our standard bear seasons in the mountainous areas. I don't necessarily foresee us having something exactly like the elk zone is set up. I mean, there's a great reason we want to keep elk in the mountains and out of agriculture areas, but it's not something I wouldn't rule out.
Do you need assistance from the general public? Do you want to know if people have seen bears or have encounters with bears?
Yes, it is always helpful. These outlying counties, Berea, Richmond, along south central Kentucky, if you do happen to see a bear there, those observation reports are great for us to put in our database and track these reports over the years. We're in the works of putting together a system where hunters can upload their trail camera photos. Hardly anybody deer hunts anymore with having a couple of trail cameras set up. And that is actually a great way for us to get documented photos of females with cubs, what we call citizen science, and, more or less have eyes across every county in the state. There's bound to be a million trail cameras out there.
There has to be. John, what's the best way for people to get back in touch with you if they have information to share?
So the best way to get in touch with us is through our info center here at info.center@ky.gov, and then the main number up here to headquarters is 800-858-1549.
Well, John, good luck with the bear program. I appreciate you stopping by.
No, I enjoyed it. I appreciate it.
And unfortunately, we are out of time. This is Charlie Baglin inviting you to join us in a week, and we'll go inside outdoors again here on Kentucky Afield Radio.